The Callisto Protocol has recently released the thunderous roar of everyone's shoulders shrugging in unison. We've been positively whelmed. It was whelming. It's not to say there's no fun to be had. I've seen people do some badass shit with the combat. Others enjoyed the story. And you know what? That's awesome. I love it when people love games. We get so caught up on the negativity surrounding things that it's easy to feel like people are trying to tell you to not have fun with a game you're clicking with. But they can only take it away from you if you let them. So don't. Now then, I think this game sucks, and I'm pissed about it. I mean, it's entirely my own fault. I fell for the hype as I have innumerable times before. Probably something like 621, but who's keeping count? But come on, this was the next project from the Dead Space guy. It was more horror in space. It had a star-studded cast. It was connected to PUBG, and then it wasn't, thank God. I could play it on my PS5 to justify paying for it. The game released, and I excitedly launched it, walked through the tutorial, continued on with the tutorial, advanced along through the tutorial, then had a few more tutorials. I mean, I assume that's what this section is. It feels really linear, and there hasn't really been any sort of character developments to speak of, so... I mean, I'm still in my prisoner uniform. How long have I been playing this? Felt like hours, but it was probably less than 2. What was the atmosphere? When did the combat get varied? Is this story going somewhere? I fell off from a healthy mix of disappointment and apathy, but had that voice in the back of my head. You paid $100 for the deluxe edition. You better play it and get your money's worth. I picked it back up a few times looking for some fun, but instead found a cardboard sandwich. It was a chore to get through. It lacked any real substance. I should have had anything else, and I just couldn't get it out of my system. Days passed, and I kept thinking about the game. Not even that I wanted to play it, just... it didn't make sense. Something didn't feel right. Hang on, can we rewind the tape? Star-studded cast. It was connected to PUBG, and then it wasn't, thank God. Right there, pause it. What? PUBG? PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that PUBG? What did that have anything to do with this? Nothing anymore, aside from some minor references, we were told. Any more? Well, after a bit of digging, I'm back with hands stained with the blood of a corporate search for immortality ending in failure, and multiple still updating Korean manhwa about finality and the inevitability of death, and I'm here to tell you, I know what happened. It's a rabbit hole, and I want to show you, I need to show you. But we'll need a map or a list or however my editor chooses to visualize my conspiracy board. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to lead us through a bunch of things. The game's history, the people and companies behind it, a healthy dose of drama. But along the way, I'm going to pluck little bits of the tale out and put them up here on my theory board for later. Once we can get through that, we'll come back to the board and rebuild the crime scene as best we can. Ready? We'll start with a much-needed getaway from the modern day and go back to the blessed year of 2008. Let me just refresh our memories with a quick Google search here. What main event happened in 2008? And... fuck! Okay, how about we just focus on the game releases? Because it was an amazing year. For games. Pretty much just for games. Grand Theft Auto 4, Fallout 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, the Super Smash Bros. I liked, but all of my friends only ever played Melee, but my personal favorite was Dead Space. Once I played it something like 5 years later, that is. It did release to critical praise at the time, though, likely due to how unique so much of it was. For starters, the horror and space setting wasn't seen much in this generation. The only ones that come to mind for me are Doom 3 and, an EVE Online spreadsheet. The concept was genius, too. You were an engineer aboard a massive and seemingly abandoned spacecraft, but quickly discover you're not alone. Joining you on your voyage through hell are the mutated remains of the crew, and these guys don't die to something as simple as a bullet to the head. Oh no. You need to cut off their arms, their legs, their whatever that is. Then, you know what? Stomp them for good measure. While this might prove a bit difficult for a typical hero with a pistol or shotgun, our guy Isaac's an engineer in space. He's got the credentials and experience to use the good shit. Plasma cutters to slice straight, horizontal, or vertical lines, a saw blade launcher, heavy mining armored boots for stomping, a flamethrower. God, I love a good flamethrower. Point is, Dead Space was distinct. It stood out enough to spawn multiple sequels and spin-offs. And what was the reward at the end of the tunnel for the game's development studio, Visceral Games? Why surely their success would be praised by their parent company, who is... Oh, I see. Yep, Visceral Games went the way of the Bullfrog. And Black Box Games. And the Westwood. And, Pandemic. God, I miss you. Sorry, that's to say that EA shut them down. Some of the devs moved on to other studios under EA, while others left for greener cubicle farms. One noteworthy departure was Glenn Schofield, the original creator of Dead Space, and would you look at that? The first addition to the board! Let's put him up there. Now, I'm not here to recount his accomplishments, titles, and projects over the next decade. I trust you can read his Wikipedia if you care. For us, the important part comes in 2019 when Schofield announces he would be CEO of Striking Distance Studios, a game development house and subsidiary of Korean-based parent company Krafton Inc. In this new position, he would be leading a team to create a new narrative-driven game set in the universe of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
As a creative, the freedom to explore the PUBG universe has me excited about the possibilities, which we view as beyond Battle Royale.
Let's start by making a note for Krafton Inc. up on the board, then come back to it later. For now, all that matters is they own the rights to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. PUBG for short. In case you've been living under a rock and also not actually living, but in fact very dead, PUBG is a highly successful money-making machine of a video game. We're not here for a lesson on PUBG, though. Instead, we want to look at the premise. 100 unnamed psychopaths in various states of undress parachute onto an uninhabited island, search high and low for weapons and armor, then fight to the death until only one remains. Or 2 or 4, depending on the game mode. It's last man standing. Pin it to the board. Also, it seems to be set in relatively modern day, given the weapons and vehicles. Other than that, as far as most of PUBG's 300 million monthly average players know or care, that's it. No NPCs, no overarching narrative, just a Spetsnaz helmet, a bulletproof frying pan, and the unending hunger for chicken dinners.
Congratulations, here's your chicken dinner.
Why do I have chicken now? What's happening?
It wouldn't be entirely unreasonable for a game to be set here, maybe explain what's going on in these battles. Still, the announcement was met with apprehension. Apprehension that then turned to befuddlement in 2020 when the Callisto Protocol had its first trailer drop. The Dead Space guy is back, and it looks like there are more questionably dead things in space. An unlucky prisoner proves to be a better lunch than a cardboard sandwich, then we pull out to reveal somebody watching the scene from security cameras. The mysterious figure then looks up as an AI voice greets an evidently expected arrival, a transport ship called the UJC Charon. The trailer does the rounds, people get excited, but then we start to remember, this is the game set in the PUBG universe. A survival horror in space is part of this? The ridicule was immense, to say the least. Anytime Callisto was brought up in the years leading up to its release, it was often spoke of with the caveat that it's still that PUBG game, I guess. While we're here, let's put up instant fan hesitation to pin this moment in time to our board. Interesting to note, in 2021, there's an interview with our man Glenn where he says about the PUBG connections in Callisto, it's not going to be really deep, but there will be little connections here and there. We'll probably be referencing one another from time to time. Which, to me at least, already reads as Schofield being apprehensive about the idea himself as much as the fans are. Those are not words of a committed man. No, my search for those still continues. So here comes May of 2022, and it's officially announced on Twitter by Schofield himself. FYI, At the Callisto game is its own story and world, no longer takes place in the PUBG universe. He elaborates further in an interview with Game Informer, but essentially furthers the idea that Schofield wasn't sold on his new game pursuing a connection to PUBG when the setting just didn't match up at all. So, you have a game that's been in development for at least 3 years. Then with 6 months left to release, you announce that there's been a major change to the overall conceit. Nope, I don't really see the problem here. Everything looks pretty normal, and I'm just gonna add another thing to the board.
Now, here's my everything's okay alarm. This will sound every 3 seconds unless something isn't okay.
We obviously can't know for sure if this was the actual point in time where that decision was made. It's entirely possible the decision could have been made sometime the previous year, then Krafton and Striking Distance just sat on the announcement until May. Although, at the risk of jumping the gun on theory crafting, what if the guy who already sounded hesitant about a connection to PUBG finally got Krafton to cave on the idea of cutting Callisto's ties to it, then excitedly took to Twitter to announce it by literally rephrasing the same sentence 4 different ways? No, really, let's read that whole tweet. FYI, at the Callisto game is its own story and world. It no longer takes place in the PUBG universe. It was originally part of the PUBG timeline, but grew into its own world. PUBG is awesome, and we still have little surprises for the fans, but TCP is its own world, story, and universe. I can practically feel Schofield's elation in this text. He's repeating himself because he's excited. He's creatively free. I can empathize with what was probably the feeling of a massive weight wearing heavy on his shoulders for literally years, now lifted, allowing him to soar to great heights. The problem is, he didn't think about where he was dropping that heavy load. And as many of us know, shit tends to trickle down. It's Saturday morning, 4 months later in September of 2022. Glenn Schofield has presumably just spoken to someone or seen something regarding working conditions at Striking Distance Studios. He's now decided to justify what he sees on Twitter by sitting down in his chair, picking his leg up by the ankle, and shoving his foot straight into his mouth. I only talk about the game during an event. We are working 6 to 7 days a week. Nobody's forcing us. Exhaustion, tired, COVID, but we're working. Bugs, glitches, perfect fixes, one last pass-through audio, 12 to 15-hour days. This is gaming. Hard work. Lunch, dinner, working. You do it because you love it. Alright, if you'll allow me just a moment of incivility. Fuck you! Nobody's forcing us? You're the CEO! It's you! This is gaming? This is gaming because this fucked industry has standardized taking advantage of hardworking, passionate people by pressuring them to work such significant overtime under the expectation that they want to do this for what is ultimately your vision, asshole! Thank you for allowing me this moment. Thankfully, the gaming community at large seemed to react similarly, enough that Schofield deleted the tweet and issued an apology tweet trying to walk it back. It's an incredibly frustrating topic which everyone seems all too happy to continue perpetuating, but that's a video for another time. For now, we'll add crunch to the board and move on. Next up is early December 2022. The Callisto Protocol launches and reception is mixed, like we already mentioned. Many people, myself included, found the story in particular to be disappointingly lacking. It was vague, short, lacking in interesting or new set pieces, didn't bother to elaborate on much, and either way, this all brought me here, writing this now and speaking this later. Or having written this before and speaking this now, I guess. I'd say there's enough evidence here that we can go over my theory board and we can take a guess at what happened to leave the story in a state like this. Hell, you can probably even put the pieces together yourself already. Good job for listening, I'm very proud of you and infinitely grateful. For the rest of you little shits, I'll summarize as best as I can. These are the alleged events as I have understood them based on the evidence I have found, and should not be taken as abject fact. I was not present for any of the alleged events. This is educated speculation at best on my part. Glenn Schofield, the mind behind the highly successful, fan-beloved 2008 horror game Dead Space, still has the itch to make more space body horror video games. In 2019, he announces he will be joining Krafton Inc. as the CEO of a new game dev studio, Striking Distance Studios. The studio will begin work on a narrative-driven sci-fi horror game, Schofield's bread and butter, and it will be called the Callisto Protocol. Krafton, the owners of the highly profitable game PUBG, will likely fund Schofield's new game, though on one condition. This new game must be connected to PUBG, given that is their current goldmine. Schofield reluctantly agrees, though his trepidation is clear in his non-committal method of talking about PUBG whenever the question is broached in interviews. For the next 2 years, the Callisto Protocol's development is well underway. Early on, a lore team is working under Schofield and is confirmed to be collaborating with Krafton on story setting. The story is likely finished in the first half of this timeline. However, for these 2 years, any article or discussion on the Callisto Protocol has one consistent point of contention. What's up with the PUBG connection? Schofield's apprehension is only worsened by the time he sees this. Their game is already being ridiculed on principle of being connected to such a silly game. There's no telling how insistent he was on the matter, but what we do know is in 2022, he probably manages to convince Krafton to cave on the matter. He shows them the reception of the game is already on the back foot, ridicule has become commonplace, and now, Krafton experienced the same cold feet Schofield's been feeling for years. Do it, they say. Pull the ripcord and send Callisto off to be its own story. Problem is, the game comes out in 6 months. Schofield wants an independent story, and his studio doesn't have a lot of time to course correct. Reshoots, rewrites, cuts, level design changes. These days, it's common for a game to be delayed. That wouldn't have been a surprise. Under these circumstances especially. Not that we knew what they were at the time, but the Callisto Protocol wasn't delayed. So how was the course correction achieved? Crunch. It's sadly likely that the studio was crunching long before this moment. But the fact that Schofield tweeted in support of crunch a few months after this announcement suggests to me they were crunching harder than they had before. And the result? A game with a lackluster story with more questions than answers, and disappointed fans who expected more. So that's my best shot at recounting what likely happened in this meat space we call real life. It's also not unheard of. Games have rewrites fairly often. Games course correct late in development all the time. This shouldn't be anything new. And it isn't. We just happen to have a lot of evidence pointing at what probably happened. That's not usually the case. You know what else I have? A shit ton of evidence about what the original story sounded like. And if I'm right, it sounds way more interesting than anything that happened in the current game. Alright, so let's roll through Callisto's story and see if we can't dig through the leftover mess and piece together an interesting narrative. This shouldn't take long. The video of all essential moments in Callisto is literally like an hour long. For reference, the first Dead Space is closer to an hour 45 or 2. We kick it off with the announcement trailer in 2019. Prisoner becomes a snack and we reveal a shadowy figure watching multiple camera feeds. It's obviously completely normal for a prison to have security cameras and a monitoring station, and it still makes sense in current context. In this case, their use might have more relevance in this speculative version we're attempting to rebuild, so put a pin in it. The mysterious man looks up from his monitors to watch while an AI voice greets an arriving ship, and we get a few more facts. This place is called Black Iron Prison, and the ship's name is the UJC Charon. That name? Put a pin in it. Now, fast forward a few years to the release of the game proper, and we kick off our story mode after a very long EULA, which doesn't allow me to play this single-player only game improperly or else I'll face punishment? Alright. Moving on. The first scene shows Danny, a character played by Karen Fukuhara, whom I find myself endlessly charmed by ever since The Boys. She has a YouTube channel and she's just a beam of happy energy. I love her. Anyway, she's walking down a neon cyberpunk market district, apparently the lone survivor of something. Oh no, wait, there's a... Oh, nope, yep, okay, lone survivor. She spots the body of someone young, possibly a child, and they've dropped this, I don't know, puzzle box? It literally looks like a missing texture from Gary's mod. Danny advances down the streets and alleyways while we watch from the perspective of what seem like security cameras positioned at multiple angles. Interestingly enough, if we look at this tiny text in the top left corner, it actually says Black Iron Prison. However, when the scene transitions, we're shown that this is coming from a story on the local news, Space TMZ. We later come to learn that this grisly scene happened on one of Jupiter's moons called Europa. We play as Joshua Duhamel, best known for, Transformers? And his name is, Transformer? It's Jacob, but it doesn't matter. This is us for the remainder of the story. We're a pilot, essentially a long-haul space trucker, aboard our ship, which an AI voice identifies as the UJC Charon, same ship from the trailer. Oddly enough, I didn't see or hear the ship's name for the rest of the game, apart from a single line of easily missable flavor text above an audio log from our co-pilot later in the game. And then the name doesn't even seem to matter all that much. Not in this cut, at least. We instruct our co-pilot to turn off the monitor, likely in a vain attempt at resisting Karen Fukuhara's charms. Our buddy seems guarded, though, evidently having some sort of moral dilemma about these hauling jobs. But we don't ask questions. These jobs have been a regular occurrence for our character, taking medium-sized boxes from Europa to Callisto, Jupiter's second biggest moon. Thing is, he's acting like we should be worried about the contents, but gives no convincing reasons why. Seems like Danny sensed us trying to avoid her, though, because she abruptly boards our ship, threatens us, then kicks off a chain of events resulting in the Charon crashing into the surface of the moon. Our co-pilot friend dies soon after impact, which would have been sad if he had any sort of character development apart from some crayon drawings hanging in his bunk reading, "We love our very alive daddy." But hey, that's more decoration than we have in our room at least. Thankfully, we're rescued by Captain Ferris, who's played by Sam Witwer from The Mist. Oh, and the captain's robot buddies. Danny is found and arrested, but after Ferris puts in a quick call, we're taken into custody too. We caused no particular damage and learned nothing secret yet. We knew this was a prison colony, but, fuck it. Why not? One short stroll later, we're subjected to a horrific surgery in which we have something installed into the base of our neck by a science type. This device acts as our health gauge, inventory, heads-up display, what have you. It's like the suit from Dead Space. We then awaken inside the prison where shit is already hitting the fan. Fires have broken out, prisoners are seemingly running amok, and screams echo the panopticonal abyss. We leave our cell and quickly meet another inmate named Elias Dies Halfway, played by Zeke Alton, best known for his performance as character voice's voice in Saints Row 2022. I mean, that feels mean, but it was that or Diablo Immortal. Elias tells us that he's been here for half of his life and has a plan for escape, but he requires a pilot. Lucky for him, we fly space trucks. While looking for the release to Elias's door, we're witness to 2 other prisoners beating the snot out of someone? And the combat system is introduced to us via QuickTime event tutorial as we dispatch them. Then we turn to face our first mutant. These are your bread and butter enemies, humans with deformed, mutated bodies intent on seeing what the inside of your face looks like. We release Elias, then have a brief encounter with Sam Witwer from Being Human before he's tackled by 2 or 3 mutants and knocked out a window. He falls an untold number of stories down in the dark abyss below, so naturally he'll be a problem for us later. A few rooms later, we find a stomach-churning scene of prison guards who have been tortured, disemboweled, and then hung from the ceiling. But where most players will write this off as a gory, atmospheric moment and then move on, I want to look a little bit closer. An audio log found in a corpse in this room suggests this was the work of a gang of prisoners, given that gang leader is named in the subtitles. It makes sense, the mutants we encounter all seem focused on murder and not, decoration? They aren't really the prolonged torture types, unless you count some of these overly long death animations, I guess. The thing is, we don't encounter any other living hostile prisoners for the remainder of the game besides the 2 from the combat tutorial. No gangs, no rivals, no crazies. All but about 7 people in this entire facility are dead, save for the occasional faceless guard being chomped by a mutant. This is yet another thing to put a pin in that I want to come back to later. There's also a secret room we can find in this chapter. It has a distinct golden sigil on the door and flags all about the room, and instantly gives a sense that some conspiracy shit went down here. Oh, and the audio log we find in here tells us too, I guess, because the warden's talking to someone from a group called Callipolis. Now, who could that... Anyway, we're off to find our 3rd potential ally, and surprise, it's Danny. She's still not happy to see us, though, and locks us in her cell. Elias tries to convince her of the plan, but she's unimpressed. He then bravely stands idle while we're moved to the mattress wing of the prison, where they produce all the padding this game is full of. We eventually meet back up with Elias and prepare to head outside, only for Sam Witwer from Riverdale to return and indirectly kill our buddy by opening the airlock before we're ready. Danny rolls up in a Jawa sandcrawler, rips Elias' neck implant out, refuses to elaborate further, then leaves. Our pleas for her to join us in an escape are met by deaf ears. At least until the end of the next section where Danny agrees to join us in an escape. After a bit more padding, we join her in the snowcrawler and she drives us to the side of our crashed ship. We head inside where she demands we open cargo we were transporting. It's medical supplies, which is what we told her was, but she clearly expected something else. So just something to keep in mind when we talk about the UJC Charon. It's this oddly bumbling conversation. Together we reach the landing pad and call down the escape ship. In the time it takes to land, a hologram of the prison's enigmatic warden, Duncan Cole, appears to give us a little bit of foreboding monologuing, then activate a turret which shoots down our escape. We plummet back into the facility while avoiding the ensuing crash. Assuming we're awake enough during this next section of padding, which I wasn't the first time through, we can find a hidden path leading to yet another secret Callipolis room. Callipolis? I'm going to call it Callipolis. The audio log has some brief mentions of Paramo. PUBG fans might perk up a bit here. Ah, you say, Paramo is one of the maps. That's a neat reference. But what if it was more than a reference? Or maybe it's just a reference. Who knows? When we meet back up with Danny, she has a cable plugged into the base of her neck where her implant health gauge thing is. The cable leads to the implant in a nearby corpse, and her eyes are glowing yellow. We unplug it, and she reacts violently, shouting, "I won't go! You can't make me! You killed them all!" As we struggle, the room we're in falls, I guess? This new area is littered with the emaciated corpses of civilians and security forces. Danny has a particularly emotional moment with one of the bodies, but they're indistinguishable from the others. After one more outburst, she seems to come to her senses, then explains she was seeing their memories, and an epidemic similar to what's happening now occurred 75 years ago at this spot, but was actually covered up. She then suggests that the virus outbreak events are, in fact, related to each other. I mean, yeah? Did you not think they were? I thought that was your whole... Next up is the Exposition Lab, where a hologram teaches us all about the research conducted on the virus and their attempts at unlocking the secret of the Paramo effect. This is also the last time we hear mention of Paramo, and it's the only one if you miss the secret room. We don't even find out what it means in the game. It's just easy to chalk up as just a reference. We near the end of the museum tour and hear the hologram enter a message saying, Vir Solitarius. It's oddly familiar, but I can't really put my finger on it. So maybe just keep it in mind. Alright, I'm going to speed things up a little bit here because the pacing choices continue to break my brain, particularly at these next parts. Okay. A massive alien was dug up here on this moon and then killed. The workers harvested larvae from it, and thus our virus was born. Its use, they claim, was in search of evolution or eternal life or something. Smallville's Sam Witwer then interrupts us with a boring boss fight that has no winner, after which Dani gets infected by one of the larvae. We pledge to help cure her, then moments later are grabbed by a security robot and sent back to your cell at the start of the game! Already, it's a frustrating feeling, wondering how much of the game they're going to make us go through again. Well, good news and bad news. Good news is we're not doing a backtrack section. Bad news, they decided it's already time for more exposition. We quickly find Dani unconscious in a room being tended to by the science type who both installed the implant in the back of her neck and gave us a tour of the Exposition Museum. So here's the abbreviated timeline we learned. A virus outbreak happened 75 years ago here on Callisto when they unearthed an alien and its larvae infected the staff. One particular victim somehow displayed signs of benefiting from an infection somehow. A mysterious group believes this event is key to the next step in humanity's evolution. This group then wanted to recreate the phenomena and tried to do so by releasing a virus on Europa. That's the alleyway we saw Dani walking at the start of the game. They are now trying a second time here on Black Iron itself. Warden Cole is in on it. There was a hidden compartment on our ship's cargo right under the medical supplies, and it's the larva. We need to kill the Warden's alpha creature to get the antidote for Dani. That all making sense to you? No, doesn't really to me either, but we're going to move on to the final encounter. It's here that we find the Warden, speaking to giant holograms of gold-masked Illuminati types who use that familiar fake Latin phrase again, Vir Solidarius. He translates for us, the survivor. He also accuses us of doing anything it takes to survive. Oh, I'm sorry, did I forget to initiate diplomacy with the zombies? What the fuck are you talking about? We get to fight, oh my god, it's Sam Witwer from The Return of Joe Rick! He brings the second phase this time around, but it doesn't save him. Time to extract the antidote, and what better place to shove the needle than straight in the eyeball? Worked in Dead Space 2, why not use it again? Cole makes us one last request. Leave the antidote and go to the escape pod to return to a normal life. Before we can tell him to fuck off ourselves, Dani comes in demanding revenge for her sister's death, then shoots Cole. Surprise, he Wizard of Oz'd us, that cunning bastard. Dani gets the antidote, and Cole triggers the self-destruct of the entire facility, destroying over 7 decades of research. Because... With one escape pod left, we shove Dani inside and admit that Cole was right. We're terrible for all the things we've done, and we deserve our fate. Dani flies to safety while we listen to a clunky monologue to attempt to give even more exposition. We transmitted data to her neck implant from ours or something. We also gave her a larva in a jar. It's not the ideal present, but come on, it's all we had time to pick up, I guess. Returning to our character, we're fighting what appears to be our last stand, until the scientist who Exposition dumped on our chest earlier appears as a hologram again. She tells us there's a way out, and then we're treated to the most horrifying moment of this entire game. The realization that the rest of the ending will be paid DLC. This is not a complete story. This is half a story at most, with a whole lot of duct tape and padding. Nothing is elaborated on in any helpful way. The environmental storytelling is incredibly thin, and even the audio logs are lacking. The majority of the notes you find sound like they were recorded within 12 hours of Jacob's arrival. Worse yet, this is largely a story we've heard before. Someone is behind virus outbreaks, unlucky bastards are transformed into body horror creatures, and the villains revealed to just be a small part of a larger cult bent on discovering humanity's next step in evolution. It's Dead Space. It's literally Dead Space. So, there's a relevant quote I want to cite here. Despite it being about films, it encapsulates the problem perfectly. Denis Villeneuve, filmmaker of the most recent Blade Runner, Dune, and all of this, said during an interview, I'm deeply obsessed with the idea that we can change, that we can evolve as human beings. The idea that we are struggling with the burden of genetics, education, family, the past, politics, religion, all of the influences as a human being. This quest to free the soul from that heritage and this relationship with the past, that's what brings me hope for humanity. I think we can evolve. But if we are not aware of it, we are condemned. Hell is repetition. So now we arrive to our next question, one we've all pondered at one point or another in our lives before. What if things had gone differently? What could it have been like? To answer that, I think it's time to talk about the PUBG universe. The landing page for PUBGUniverse.com has an interesting opening message. Let's take a look. To win the battleground is to be Vir Solidarius, the lone survivor. Stories surround the game and those behind it. Tales of prison riots and murder tapes. Rumors of a centuries-old cabal and the secret ritual of Magna Venari. All to answer a simple question. Why do some survive when others do not? The question remains unanswered. And so the battlegrounds continue. They must continue. For the answer will one day save the world. That's plenty we can unpack right off the bat. Vir Solidarius was said multiple times throughout the Callisto Protocol, and the ending sequence reveals that's us. We're the lone survivor. A centuries-old cabal and a sacred ritual. Sounds sort of culty, doesn't it? When we navigate through the PUBG timeline, we can see this ritual began in the early 15th century by a group that would be known as the Callipolis, people depicted in golden masks. With this context alone, we can decipher what the fuck was supposed to be happening in that final sequence of the game. We know who Cole's talking to now. We know why he's talking to them. We know what their goal was. It's explained just with that one paragraph. Continuing with the PUBG lore though, we have a few more entries to pluck details from for our own conspiracy needs. As the ritual developed, one particular incident took the form of a prison riot, where one inmate fought his way to victory through an army of prisoners. But this time, the event was captured on tape. That tape was then sold in black markets as an exciting snuff film and leads to the Callipolis starting to capitalize on recording more of these events. These recordings improved and developed along with the ritual, which would soon become the Battle Royale, which would be filmed by security cameras, further evolved by introducing the blue chip. In the actual game PUBG, there's this item called the blue chip tracker. If you've ever played Rainbow Six Siege or a recent Call of Duty, this is essentially a heartbeat sensor. You can track where enemies are on a sonar-like scanning device. There's something the game doesn't explain though. What are these blue chips? The answer is simple. All participants of the battlegrounds are implanted with a chip at, get this, the base of their neck. This chip would be developed over time, starting as a GPS locator and later becoming a device capable of recording each participant's perspective, as well as a readout of biometric data. So, what's that mean in simple terms? Well, it means the Callipolis have a live feed of everyone's point of view in a match of PUBG, as well as information on how alive they might still be. Let's go deeper to find out more. Were you wondering who developed the blue chip? No? That's fine, I wasn't either. Until I came across a webpage for a fake corporation called Tythonic Industries. It's sort of eerie, the stock pictures they chose all seem just a bit unnatural, enough to suspect something's off. There's also plenty of references to death, or maybe subverting it. And we know it's fake for the record because down here at the bottom, besides the long expired copyright, we can see 4 links and they all lead to PUBG.com. Now then, among Tythonic's solutions, they offer fast-acting instant pain relief morphine, so, in theory, a health injection. Interesting. What else? The envelope and the Cobaltic viewer, the former most likely being Battleground security cameras and the latter being our biometric readout tracker. Finally, the blue chip, an implant which will extend your life by at least 40 years. It's really starting to click now. The pieces are here and it's beginning to come together. Here on the website, it mentions there was a business review meeting which was open to investors and even had registration to be an investor, but it happened back in Q3 2020 and we missed the call. But thankfully, in our time of need, a real hero arrived to join the call and ask the hard questions.
Welcome to Mysteries Unknown. I'm Jonathan Frakes.
That's right. Someone turned on the Frakes signal, and he arrived! Jonathan Frakes, best known for portraying Commander Riker in Star Trek, had a mystery investigation show called Beyond Belief back in the late 90s and early 90s. Now, he's involved in a mockumentary with the same format as his old show, this time investigating the Battlegrounds. This actually turns out to be a surprisingly well-produced and well-acted 17-minute lore video in a neat little package. Frakes implies Tithonic is funding the Battlegrounds in return from data from the blue chip implant, which they intend to use in the pursuit of eternal life, the evolution of the human species. So let's connect the dots. This fake company created the neck implant from the Callisto Protocol, because it explains the biometric data transfer it's capable of. Danny rips out Elias's to gain information on the facility to escape. Cole makes mention of watching our entire journey. This explains his omnipotence. Remember that screen of monitors from the very first trailer? Tithonic's camera systems. There's even a screen in the guard station where we can see a readout of all the prisoners' faces and biometrics. Lastly, it's a better goal for Cole's attempt at finding humanity's evolution, eternal life.
You are mistaken, Mr. Lee. The protocol isn't about death. It's about life. This fragile shell holds us back. We have to evolve if we are to survive.
Shit, this is starting to sound less crazy by the minute, isn't it? Well, we're not done yet. Back when it was announced that Callisto would take place in the PUBG universe, one of the biggest questions everyone had was, how? PUBG seems to be early 21st century, modern day. Callisto is a sci-fi space horror set in the future. That time gap is huge and confusing. Well, back to the PUBG Universe website. We can see they've included a 22nd century note on the timeline. 100 years in the future, our world is scarred by war, economic collapse, and environmental ruin. Here, the rich live in sovereign islands known as retreats. Reaping the benefits of advanced technology, their lifespans have been stretched well beyond the norm. Outside the retreats, a crush in the surrounding mega-slums, the poor fight for scraps. The only chance to escape poverty is to get your hands on a combat visa, and the only way to earn a visa is by winning the Battlegrounds. Yes, the Battlegrounds remain, legal and public, and every bit as brutal. We also get a couple links. The first being an animated video of a massacre perpetrated by the gold mask wearing Callipolis, but we've already exposed that connection, so let's take a look at the other. Turns out it's a Korean manhwa hosted on Webtoons. It's a webcomic. The story's about the haves and have-nots and upper class living in ritzy retreats while the lower class living in the slums are forced to serve them. The only way out of poverty and into a rich, lavish life is to fight in the battleground. I actually enjoyed the little bit of it that I read. The opening shows the brutish winner of one of the matches gains citizenship in the retreats, yet still ends up shunned by everyone there. I'm sure that doesn't lead to any issue. Oh my goodness! This series actually has a 9.5 out of 10 star user rating, 500,000 views, and the most recent update was last week at the time of writing. There's actually 2 more PUBG manhwa which are even more successful. 100 is the representation of a full match of Battlegrounds in all its brutal glory, while Night of Silence is an investigative journey into the sport's shadowy origins. All of this is to say, there's real story here, a real vision with genuine passion behind it. Problem is, Krafton and the PUBG Corp have utterly failed at integrating any of this storytelling with the actual game PUBG. I have an unhealthy amount of time sunk into PUBG myself, and I know friends who have played nearly every week since launch. None of us had any clue there was even a shred of lore for this game. So what if, stay with me here, a new high-budget video game, with known actors, a game director with clout, could be used as a way to hook people in to engage with this lore further? Sort of like a phase 1 of a potential PUBG universe. Well, it sounds to me that someone with influence didn't like that idea and had all references removed. But fuck, dude, it had to be so late in development if we have this many leftover connections. So where does that leave us? Well, I think we can piece together the chunks of what the story was now. Jacob was the pilot of the UJC Charon, named after the ferryman of the River Styx, a transporter of dead or damned souls. With this and a few other bits of evidence, we can assume his cargo was living people, smuggling them into a prison against their will to be used as participants in a battle royale or test subjects. This explains Jacob's guilt, his co-pilot's hesitance to keep doing these jobs, and Danny's instant hatred. It also justifies the pit stop at the crashed ship midway through the game. It's the perfect point to confirm what we had a hand in, whether it's a corpse or just evidence that someone was here, rather than, oh no, it's just a box with some medical supplies and we didn't look in the secret compartment that was under the medical supplies. Anyway, this experiment with a body horror virus is conducted by the Callipolis, the gold mask cultists that we actually see in the finale. They say Vir Solidarius. They call us the Survivor. Their plan is to release the prisoners, scramble security droids, and allow the prison to fall into chaos. A battle royale, as tradition. But this time, there's a twist. They'll release a virus to infect them all. I personally believe this also lends credence to the idea that we'd be fighting normal human enemies for the first couple hours of the game. We'd encounter killers accustomed to the idea of a battle royale, gangs tearing up the uninformed guards, gang leaders acting as better boss fights than the single mini-boss we fight 4 times throughout Callisto. As for the rest of it, well, you tell me. Really, down in the comments, let me know what you think. Are you convinced? What else do you think could be explained by the PUBG cut? Sadly, we'll never know for sure, but do you think it would have elevated the Callisto Protocol from a middling game to a memorable one? I mean, no. Big thanks to Logan for editing this video and capturing all the footage. You're a real trooper for getting through this, man. Thank you. Shout out to another perfect thumbnail by my wife, too. Go check out her Instagram. And thank you for watching all the way to the end. I can't tell you how much your attention means to me. I literally can't. I'm legally not allowed to tell you. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy. Remember to treat yourself the way you'd want others to treat you. Okay, now I feel like I got $100 worth of value out of this game.